Hello, everybody. My name's Gavin Chang,
I'm Calve Anoa.
and we're the founders of Civic Digest, and we're really honored to have Daniel Chung, a candidate for Santa Clara County's district attorney, with us today. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, for the people just tuning in, you spend your career as a prosecutor, meaning your job has been to build cases and to take criminals to court. In super terms, for the people who don't know, what does a district attorney's office do for everyday residents, and why does it matter who runs it?
Yeah, the DA's office has the utmost responsibility of upholding public safety. And we do that by holding people accountable when they commit crimes. So we work hand in hand with police agencies and other law enforcement agencies to investigate crimes, see if crimes were committed, determine who committed those crimes, and determine if we have enough evidence to proceed with criminal prosecutions. And after all of that, we charge individuals with crimes and we try to figure out the best ways to resolve these cases in a manner that's just and fair and speedy for everybody involved. So everybody should care about the DA's office and its functions because crime affects everybody. Public safety doesn't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're old, young, whether you're white, black, it doesn't matter. Everybody across all classes, across all neighborhoods are affected by crime. And when people don't feel safe, that undermines everything else in our society, right? The primary function of government is to protect people's lives, their liberties, their property, so that they can pursue their happiness, whether it be, starting businesses or startups or, building families, purchasing homes, whatever it is they want to do, you have to have a foundation of safety first. And so that's why the DA's office plays such an important role in sort of strengthening our government and making sure that everybody in our community can thrive.
Awesome. That was great. Moving on. You said in the past or on your Instagram that the current DA has created a revolving door where serious offenders get out and reoffend. Can you give us a concrete example of a case or pattern where you saw that happen and felt that the current system had failed?
Absolutely. So back in 2014, there was a big measure passed in California called Proposition 47. And everybody now knows this infamous $950 theft rule, where as long as you steal below $950, it will constantly be a misdemeanor charge against you, no matter how many times you commit this. And that rule, that $950 rule, this Proposition 47 that was created in 2014, my boss played a key role in promoting Proposition 47. He and DA George Gascon, who used to be the DA of San Francisco and then later in Los Angeles, went around the whole state making commercials promoting how the $950 theft rule was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And obviously, we know the aftermath of that, which is tons of smash and grab robberies, tons of broad daylight thefts that have occurred. And it's really created a revolving door for a lot of these thieves. And in fact, 2 years ago, we had an opportunity to correct for some of the excessive $950 thefts that were occurring. This was a new proposition called Proposition 36. It would hold repeat offenders more accountable. And my boss publicly opposed it. He wrote articles. He came out in public saying he does not support Proposition 36, largely because, he played such a key role in creating Proposition 47, and going in favor of Proposition 36 would now start undermining one of his key accomplishments. So that played a very important role in creating very repeat property crime in Santa Clara County. And one of the biggest examples of that was the Vietnamese jewelry store robbery that happened in the fall that went international, where they smashed into that jewelry store with a bunch of cars and thieves. They pushed that poor grandfather to the ground and stole thousands of dollars in property and ran away.
Okay, great. And just for the viewer who may not know, you referred to your boss a few times. Can you explain quickly Um,
Oh, yes. So I am a prosecutor in San Jose, and my boss is Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeff Rosen, who has been in office for 4 terms now, for a total of 16 years.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. And moving on, you've also argued that the way case, we've also heard you on social media say that like the way the cases are handled, where one prosecutor files the charges and a different prosecutor takes it to trial, and you've claimed that it leads to confusion in cases falling apart. Help us understand, why does that matter to a victim of a crime?
Yeah, so accountability is really important, and having a good relationship and good rapport with victims is so critical to successfully prosecuting cases. Vertical prosecution is the gold standard among all DA's offices across the entire country. And what vertical prosecution generally means is that whoever starts that criminal investigation and prosecution by charging that individual generally handles it from beginning all the way to the end. And that ensures that there is continuity and accountability, right? You want the victim to develop a trusting relationship with the prosecutor that is going to be fighting hard for their case. And it keeps them updated on, hey, what's going on with my case? When do I need to show up for this? What else do you need from me in order to successfully prosecute? And having that long-term relationship is so critical. Victims really love knowing their prosecutor and being able to trust them because the legal process is very scary and unknown for a lot of people. When you have what our office has, which is an assembly line horizontal type of prosecution system where one prosecutor does charging, one prosecutor does hearings, one prosecutor might do trials, it creates no sense of continuity or accountability. And I have often encountered victims who say to me, you are the fifth or sixth or seventh prosecutor who has been working on my case. I can't believe I need to tell you my story again. I've already told my story a million times to the DA's office, but I need to tell it to you again now. You already dropped the ball several times in the past. There's so many things that have gone wrong, and you have no idea what's going on with the case because, as the prosecutor who just picked it up, to be fair to you, you just picked it up and you have no idea, what went well or wrong. And all of a sudden, all the blame is on you, and you need to pick up and relearn everything and rebuild all of those relationships. And that's very harmful to seeking speedy trials and justice in our system.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we've also seen that you've said currently the office overcharges weak cases to pressure people in the plea deal rather than pursuing cases that they can actually prove. So, if this is true, what would that mean for an ordinary person who just gets caught up in the system, even if they were innocent?
It means that there is an incredible amount of pressure on them to just plead guilty or to take a deal that will give them the minimum amount of punishment. Because if they are facing a tremendous number of years in prison or very, very serious charges, even if they are innocent, if they can't afford an attorney for several years, if they can't afford to miss work constantly and go to court hearings and keep battling this for years, right? Oftentimes cases take 5 to 7 years to resolve, right? Imagine having to take that many work days off and come to hearings and keep paying your lawyer for that long. It creates a lot of bad incentives for innocent people or people who aren't necessarily guilty of the most serious charges. They might be guilty of some things, but not everything, to just take a plea deal and say, look, I'm just giving up. This system is way too overwhelming. And I have personally experienced the DA's office engaging in this type of misconduct. I have seen district attorneys in my office who are in leadership positions say and literally write in the system that we are only charging this individual to scare them. I have had conversations even with my direct supervisor saying, Daniel, don't worry about, your concerns about the evidence. Don't worry about you believing you can't prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt because we're just hoping to just get a plea deal from this guy, right? We're just going to charge him. We're just going to get a plea deal. You don't need to worry about it going to trial. And I have had to push back aggressively, even against my own prosecutor, saying, what the hell? If you want to charge weak cases like that, then don't ask me to do your dirty work. You charge those cases and you can handle those cases from the beginning to end. I don't want to be a part of your unethical prosecutions where you're just strong arming individuals, scaring them, and pressuring them to take plea deals.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, moving on to our next topic, you've proposed assigning prosecutors specific neighborhoods. So, one person handles all the cases that area start to finish. Walk us through how that actually changes things for a crime victim waiting on a case.
Yeah, so building community trust is absolutely critical for law enforcement. And just as a vertical system of prosecution is going to build a lot of rapport between that one victim and the one prosecutor who handles it from beginning to end, when the neighborhoods know the prosecutors who are serving that community, it creates so much more rapport and effectiveness for prosecutions because now they know who is going to be accountable for the things that occur in those neighborhoods, right? A lot of people, especially coming from immigrant communities and vulnerable communities, are very scared to cooperate with the police, cooperate with the DA's office. They feel like they don't look like them, they don't understand them, they never come out into the community, they have no idea what their community life is really like, right? But imagine if we had prosecutors who are specifically assigned to specific neighborhoods, whether it be in Milpitas, East Side San Jose, South County, or Palo Alto, whatever it is, those prosecutors now start developing key relationships with stakeholders in those communities, right? They start learning who are the leaders in those communities, who are the neighborhood community advocates there, who are the people that we should develop trusting relationships with, so that when bad things happen in those neighborhoods, people now can trust us and they have an established relationship and can be more willing to come forward, offer information, offer assistance, offer guidance on even identifying individuals or looking into further evidence to really strengthen cases. So all of that really helps victims in the long run because when you have better relationships with communities, better processes, and more efficient processes, it's going to lead to better outcomes for the victims.
Yeah, so I guess that is a pretty large fundamental change to how the DA's office would work. So it would take time and buy-in from your staff. You've had a very public and contentious relationship with this office. How do you get people there to actually follow your lead on day one?
Yeah, absolutely. My beef has only been with one person in the office, and that's the leader of the office, District Attorney Jeff Rosen. I don't have beef with the line prosecutors in that office or the support staff or anybody else who is the hundreds of employees who are supporting and strengthening that office, right? My challenge has always been to my boss and holding him accountable for his leadership failures and his 16 years where prosecutions have failed under him. He is a believer in Truman's motto that the buck stops with him, and I have not launched attacks against my colleagues or my line prosecutors because we all work in the trenches together and we all know what it's really like to prosecute cases and fight hard for victims. And so when I am elected and come into the office, I'm going to build very collaborative relationships across the board with all prosecutors, all support staff and investigators there, and really tell them, hey, we're going to try to reshape the culture here. And I would love your feedback, both positive and negative, so that I can better incorporate your advice into the changes that I want to make into the office as well. Because there are a lot of prosecutors and investigators who are very discontent with how the office is run, but they are afraid to voice their opposition or their criticism of things because the current culture is so top down and so toxic that if you step out of line, if you challenge the status quo, there is usually retaliation, discrimination, and harassment that occurs shortly thereafter.
Nice. Thank you. So, just moving on. Many people in this county who end up in the justice system are dealing with things like mental illnesses, addiction, homelessness. Is prosecution really the right tool for these people? Or would a tougher approach just cycle them back onto the streets? Like, what is your approach to this?
Yeah, so for me, issues like mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, those are actually very personal issues for me because of my life experiences. When I was 8 years old, my father suffered from bipolar disorder and committed suicide. Because of my mom, who was an immigrant speaking no English and having no job skills, we eventually lost our family home, right? So I have been through a lot of the experiences that many people in our county undergo. Losing jobs. I've lost my prosecutor job twice, losing homes, losing parents. And so a lot of people in our community come from broken families and economic hardship. And at the end of the day, criminal prosecution is not going to solve those issues of mental health, substance abuse, and homelessness and job insecurity. Prosecution cannot, right? We unfortunately come into the system way too late in the game, right? By the time anyone comes across our desk, they have already grown up in very broken families, neighborhoods, and gone through a lot. And it's difficult for us to intervene just at the end to just suddenly wave a magic wand and transform their lives. So I would like our office to be a bit more compassionate and really take these things into consideration and think in the long run, right? Everybody we prosecute, minus maybe like 5 or 10 people, are ultimately going to come back into our community. They're going to have to find jobs. They're going to have to find homes. They're going to be building families. So, what can we do long term to promote public safety, hold people accountable, but also give people a meaningful chance to turn their life around? Because if we don't give people meaningful chances to turn their life around and really find hope and restoration and renewal in their life, we will find them back in our court system again. And I absolutely don't want to see the same people again and again in our system. I always kind of joke with people that because I'm a prosecutor, if I do my job well and we've done our job appropriately, we should never see you ever again. Whether you're a victim or a defendant, the best thing that could possibly happen to us is that we never have to see those victims and defendants again in our workplace environment, right? So I would love to see them just thriving in the community and succeeding. And so I think we really need to take a compassionate approach to these issues and think about what are long-term solutions.
Okay, great. One final question to wrap everything up. Someone watching this has never voted in a local race before, like many people in this county, and doesn't know your name. In 30 seconds, can you say why you and why now?
Yeah, I grew up in Milpitas. Santa Clara County is home to me. I really care about everybody in our community. And my care is not just lip service, it's based on my life experiences. I am a prosecutor who has lost my own job as a prosecutor twice and fought back just as hard against my own corrupt and incompetent boss, who is the lead prosecutor in our county, as hard and as aggressively as I have fought back against bad people and criminals in our county. So, as someone who demands and requires integrity and competence and compassion from everybody, whether you be in law enforcement or regular civilians, I am well equipped and well trained as a career prosecutor to take over and really serve my home community. I have loved prosecuting violent crimes in New York City and in Silicon Valley, and I've come full circle now and ready to serve my community after fighting for justice for victims for so many years now.
All right, perfect. That pretty much wraps up our interview. Thank you so much for coming and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, really, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your guys' engagement. I hope, even if it just adds 10 more voters or 100 more voters, I really hope that people really take the June 2nd primary seriously and really want to engage because the DA's race is going to be over on June 2nd. There is not going to be a November general election for the DA's race because we're already down to 2 people. So whoever gets one more vote than the other person on June 2nd wins, and that is our next district attorney for the next 4 years. There is not a rematch that happens in November.
All right. Thank you so much.